We think depression looks like crying in bed, but psychologically, hidden depression often looks like relentless discipline. It is you waking up early, working constantly, and playing podcasts just so your room never gets quiet. You fear an empty hour because when the noise stops, suppressed pain starts drowning you. If you keep using productivity to outrun this silence, your nervous system will completely collapse. Today, we will decode this and help you find true peace. But first, take a deep breath. What city or state in the US are you in right now? Sending a warm hug to soothe your lonely soul wherever you are in that fast-paced country. Depression does not always look like sadness. Sometimes it looks like discipline. It looks like someone waking before sunrise, going to the gym for 3 hours, answering every message, filling every empty space in the calendar, and never allowing the room to become quiet. It looks like productivity, self-improvement, and control. People admire them. They say, "I wish I had your energy." They ask how they stay so motivated. But no one asks what happens when they stop moving. That is what makes hidden depression difficult to recognize. It can wear the face of ambition. It can sound intelligent. It can hide inside independence, irritation, humor, and habits that appear harmless. A person can still work, smile, exercise, make plans, and care for everyone around them, while quietly losing the ability to feel connected to their own life. These 5 signs do not automatically mean someone has depression, but they may reveal emotional pain that has learned how to disguise itself. And sometimes the person hiding it is not hiding from other people. They are hiding from themselves. The first hidden sign is extreme busyness and dependence on harmless-looking remedies. Imagine someone whose day begins with noise. The alarm rings, and before their eyes have fully opened, a podcast is playing. They wear headphones while making coffee. They listen to music in the shower. They work with a video running in the background. After work, they go straight to the gym, not for 40 minutes, but for 2 or 3 hours. Then they begin a new hobby, sign up for another class, reorganize the apartment, or plan the next weekend before the current one has ended. From the outside, their life appears full. Inside, they may be terrified of an empty hour. The gym is not the problem. Music is not the problem. Hobbies, work, and routines can be healthy. The hidden question is whether these things are helping a person live or helping them avoid feeling alive. For someone with depression, silence can become dangerous territory. The moment the noise disappears, thoughts held underwater begin rising to the surface. Regret, shame, loneliness, the memory of something lost, the fear that nothing will change. The suspicion that everyone else is moving forward while they are only pretending. So they create emotional white noise. They exhaust the body so the mind has less strength to speak. They keep sound in their ears so they do not have to hear the conversation inside their head. They become attached not to the activity itself, but to the relief it creates. For a few hours, running, lifting, scrolling, cleaning, working, or learning something new gives them a temporary sense of direction. But the relief ends when the activity ends. That is why rest may feel strangely uncomfortable. A free Sunday does not feel peaceful. It feels threatening. A canceled plan does not feel like freedom. It feels like being trapped alone with a mind that has been waiting all week to speak. The painful part is that this person may believe their busyness proves they are doing well. They compare themselves to the stereotype of depression and think, "I am still functioning. I am still productive. I cannot be struggling that badly." But functioning is not the same as feeling whole. Sometimes relentless productivity is not proof that someone has found purpose. Sometimes it is evidence that they are running from a pain that catches up whenever the room becomes quiet. The second hidden sign is a broken relationship with sleep and food. Depression is often portrayed as someone lying awake all night, barely eating, with exhaustion visible on their face. That can happen. But depression can also look like sleeping for 14 hours and waking up as if you have not rested at all. It can look like eating constantly without feeling satisfied, then forgetting to eat the next day. It can look like staying awake until 3 in the morning because sleep means tomorrow will arrive sooner. A person may call themselves lazy, undisciplined, or weak. They promise that tomorrow they will wake early, cook a healthy meal, and get their life under control. Then tomorrow comes, and their body feels heavier than their intentions. This is not always a failure of willpower. Depression can drain energy before the day begins. Simple tasks become expensive. Getting out of bed, making breakfast, replying to a message, or taking a shower can require an amount of effort that other people cannot see. The body begins trying to regulate a nervous system that no longer feels balanced. For some people, sleep becomes an emergency shutdown. It is not refreshing, it is an escape from consciousness. While asleep, they do not have to make decisions, disappoint anyone, explain their emotions, or face the distance between the life they have and the life they expected. Food can become another attempt to create a brief emotional change. Comforting foods may offer a small burst of pleasure when the rest of life feels flat. Others lose their appetite because sadness has turned eating into another task they cannot complete. Then shame enters the cycle. They sleep too much and hate themselves for wasting the day. They eat for comfort and criticize their body afterward. They skip meals, lose energy, become irritable, and blame themselves for not functioning normally. What began as a nervous system struggling to cope becomes evidence, in their mind, that they are failing at being a person. But the body is not betraying them. The body may be communicating what the mind has been forced to hide. It may be saying, "I am exhausted. I am overwhelmed. I cannot keep carrying this at the same pace." And when someone has ignored that message for too long, the body often becomes louder. The third hidden sign is becoming an accidental philosopher. You may notice someone suddenly asking questions that seem unusually deep. What is the point of working so hard if everything eventually disappears? Would anyone truly notice if I stopped showing up? How different would my life be if I had made one different decision 10 years ago? Why do people spend their entire lives chasing things that never make them happy? At first, these questions may sound thoughtful and mature. Others may describe this person as wise, introspective, or emotionally intelligent. They may become the friend who talks about mortality, identity, fate, and the meaning of existence late at night. But sometimes they are not exploring life because they feel curious. They are interrogating life because they can no longer feel its meaning. There is a difference between reflection and rumination. Reflection can lead somewhere. It helps us understand an experience, learn from it, and eventually place it down. Rumination moves in circles. It asks the same painful question repeatedly, but never accepts an answer. What if I had tried harder? What if I ruined everything? What if nobody has ever truly loved me? What if the future is only more of this? A depressed mind can turn into a courtroom that never closes. Every memory becomes evidence. Every mistake becomes a character judgment. Every uncertain future becomes a sentence already decided. The person may spend hours replaying conversations, studying the tone of a text message, or imagining alternate versions of the past. They may lie awake trying to identify the exact moment their life went wrong, as though finding that moment could somehow allow them to return and repair it. But the mind is not solving a problem. It is searching desperately for an anchor. Depression often removes the emotional reward from ordinary life. Achievements feel empty. Relationships feel distant. Activities that once created excitement now feel strangely colorless. When someone can no longer feel why life matters, they may begin trying to think their way back into meaning. They read philosophy, they study psychology, they watch videos about consciousness, death, trauma, and purpose. They collect explanations because explanations feel safer than emptiness. Yet beneath all that analysis may be a frightened human being asking a much simpler question. Is there still a reason for me to be here? Not every conversation about death means someone intends to harm themselves. But repeated hopelessness, statements about being a burden, or language suggesting that life has no purpose should never be dismissed as mere intellectual curiosity. Sometimes the deepest sounding sentence in the room is also the quietest request for help. The fourth hidden sign is pushing love away because of a fear of abandonment. This person often appears fiercely independent. They solve their own problems. They rarely ask for help. When they are hurting, they disappear. If someone asks whether they are okay, they smile and say they are simply tired. If someone offers support, they change the subject, make a joke, or insist that other people have more important problems. They may even become irritated when someone gets too close. You do not need to worry about me. I can handle it. I just need some space. From the outside, this can look cold, avoidant, or ungrateful. The people who love them may feel rejected. They may assume the person does not trust them or does not value the relationship. But the hidden truth is often the opposite. They may want comfort so deeply that receiving it becomes terrifying. Depression can create a powerful burden belief. The person begins to see their sadness as something toxic, something that will eventually exhaust anyone who comes near it. They imagine their pain spreading into every relationship. They fear becoming the difficult friend, the draining partner, the disappointing child, or the parent whose emotions are too heavy for the family to carry. So they try to protect others by withdrawing. They tell themselves, if I do not need anyone, nobody will become tired of me. They leave messages unanswered because they do not know how to explain what is happening. They decline invitations because pretending to be okay requires too much energy. They hide their worst nights because they are afraid that one day the person listening will finally say, "I cannot do this anymore." The cruel paradox is that the more they fear abandonment, the more likely they are to create distance before anyone has the chance to stay. They leave first emotionally. They become unavailable. They test whether people will notice their silence, then feel wounded when no one understands what the silence means. This is not manipulation in the way people often assume. It is self-protection shaped by shame. They are not saying, "Prove that you love me." They are silently asking, "Would you still love me if you saw how difficult it is to be me right now?" And because they cannot bear the possibility that the answer might be no, they never allow the question to be spoken. The fifth hidden sign is losing patience with the smallest things. Depression on television is often shown as tears, silence, and someone unable to get out of bed. In real life, it can look like anger. It can look like snapping because a cup was left in the wrong place. It can look like becoming unusually harsh with a coworker, feeling furious in traffic, or speaking sharply to the person you love most because they asked one simple question at the wrong moment. Afterward, the guilt arrives. You replay the expression on their face. You wonder why you reacted so strongly. You promise yourself that next time you will remain calm, but next time comes and another minor inconvenience feels unbearable. The problem is not really the cup. It is not the traffic, the noise, the unanswered email, or the person chewing too loudly beside you. Those things are simply where the pain finally escapes. When sadness has been suppressed for too long, the nervous system can lose its ability to absorb ordinary stress. The person is already carrying grief, loneliness, shame, exhaustion, disappointment, and fear. They may be using every ounce of emotional energy just to appear normal. So when one more demand appears, even a small one, there is nowhere for it to go. Imagine holding a glass that is already filled to the rim. One additional drop does not seem powerful enough to create a flood. But the drop is not the real cause. The glass was already full. That is what irritability can feel like in depression. The person may wake up overstimulated. Notifications feel invasive. Questions feel like pressure. Someone asking, "What do you want for dinner?" can feel like another impossible decision. A harmless joke can sound like criticism. A loved one's need for attention can feel like proof that there will never be space to rest. This does not excuse cruel behavior. Pain does not give anyone permission to repeatedly hurt others. But understanding the source matters, because shame alone rarely creates change. If someone believes they are simply becoming a bad person, they may hide even more. They may pull away from family to avoid hurting them. They may decide that everyone would be happier without their presence. The more guilt they feel, the more depressed they become. The more depressed they become, the less patience they have. The cycle continues until anger becomes the only emotion others can see. But underneath that, anger may be a person who feels completely powerless. Anger gives pain a temporary sense of strength. Sadness says, "I cannot handle this." Anger says, "This should not be happening." Sadness collapses inward. Anger pushes outward. For a moment, anger can feel easier than admitting, "I am exhausted. I am scared. I do not know how much longer I can continue like this." That is why the person may become most irritable with those they trust the most. Outside the home, they hold themselves together. They smile at customers, remain polite with strangers, and finish their responsibilities. Then they return to the one place where their nervous system believes it can finally stop performing. The mask falls. Unfortunately, the people closest to them receive the emotional debris. This can be painful and confusing for everyone involved. The family may think, "You are kind to everyone except us." The depressed person may think, "I keep hurting the only people who care about me." What they may not understand is that their anger is not evidence that they have stopped loving those people. It may be evidence that they have been surviving without enough emotional support for far too long. These 5 signs can hide in plain sight. Extreme busyness can be mistaken for ambition. Disrupted sleep and eating can be dismissed as laziness. Rumination can be praised as intelligence. Isolation can be mistaken for independence. Irritability can be judged as a personality flaw. But behind each of these behaviors may be the same unspoken message. Something inside me is hurting, and I do not know how to say it. Depression does not always announce itself clearly. It often adapts to the person carrying it. In a high achiever, it may become overwork. In a caretaker, it may become constant service to others. In an intellectual person, it may become endless analysis. In someone who has been abandoned before, it may become emotional distance. In someone who has been strong for too long, it may become anger. The most important question is not, do they look depressed? The better question is, have they stopped feeling like themselves? Have their routines become extreme? Has rest become uncomfortable? Has their body lost its natural rhythm? Are their thoughts becoming darker, more repetitive, or more hopeless? Are they pushing away the very people they once trusted? Are small problems creating reactions that seem much larger than the moment? And if you recognize yourself in these signs, please do not use this awareness as another reason to criticize yourself. You are not broken because you have been coping in imperfect ways. You may have been doing whatever you could to survive feelings you were never taught how to hold. But survival strategies can become prisons when we no longer need to face them alone. Healing may begin with something very small. Turning off the noise for 5 minutes and noticing what rises. Eating one simple meal without punishment. Telling someone, "I have not been feeling like myself lately." Apologizing after anger without turning the apology into self-hatred. Speaking with a mental health professional instead of waiting until the pain becomes impossible to hide. You do not need to prove that your suffering is severe enough before asking for help. You do not need to collapse publicly to deserve support. And you do not have to explain your entire life perfectly. Sometimes the first honest sentence is enough. "I think I am struggling." If someone came to mind while you listen to this, do not diagnose them or confront them with a label. Ask them a gentler question. "How have you really been feeling lately?" Then give them time to answer. And if these words felt uncomfortably familiar, you may share your story in the comments, even if it is only one sentence. Your honesty may help another person realize that they are not the only one hiding pain behind a functional life. Subscribe if you want more conversations that make difficult emotions easier to understand. Sometimes healing begins not when someone gives us the perfect advice, but when we finally hear words